Happy Tuesday, everybody. Hopefully, everybody had a wonderful Easter. We've got Mercy Komar joining us today from Komar Insurance Educators for a conversation about making cyber insurance a win-win-win. Mercy, thank you so much for being here. I'm excited to learn from you.
Thank you so much, too. I got to get a new picture. That still has my dyed hair. I've let it go gray now, natural, back to the natural stuff. So I'll have to get a new picture taken.
I think you look great in all your pictures and especially live.
Well, I am special live.
I typically don't get dressed up. I went to not a whole lot anyway. I don't know if anybody could possibly tell. I'm usually in shorts and a t-shirt. I went home for Easter and my family teased me a little bit for my casual nature. So
well,
I like it.
Hey, you know what? Whatever you're comfortable in is what you need to be.
Exactly.
The old ways of doing things anymore are not, I learned a long time ago, even from the insurance business, when I would go into a business new, I would go in dressed, for business, and I'd see how they dressed. And after about the second time going in, you realize you just dress however they dress. And most of the places I go to, and even in the past 20 years, are in jeans and sweatshirts and t-shirts and that. Now I don't quite do that, but I mean, I don't go in dressed in heels and a suit usually.
Yeah,
so just
not anymore.
No, not much anymore. Once in a great while for business meetings with the insurance companies and that, but other than that, usually it's pants, slacks, tops and things for most people nowadays. So yeah, the world has changed.
A little more casual.
I'm sorry, dear?
A little bit more casual. I'm sorry for cutting.
More casual, yeah. Sometimes too casual. Got to know where to draw the line. But yeah, it's a little bit more casual and relaxed. And I think that's better for all of us in the long run.
I think so, too. I think it allows everybody to come to the table.
It does. Now, I will say that I miss seeing people dress nicely for dinner sometimes, because I always consider going out for dinner kind of a date night, but you see some sights.
Oh, that's true. Yeah, that's absolutely true. Well, if I ever take you to dinner, I'm going to get all jazzed up. I promise.
Good. I can't wait.
Awesome. Well, I want to hear, before we dive into topic of today, which is how cyber insurance can be balanced and valuable for the three different parties involved, the insurers, the brokers, and the small businesses and medium businesses that are incurring the cost for a value. But before we dive into that, I'd love to go through your career and entrepreneurial journey so that we can kind of get an idea of how you've gotten such a perspective of the three different parties involved. And I think it's also interesting. We talked about you choosing to go into entrepreneurship in the latter half of life. And I'd love to kind of talk a little bit about that and get some perspectives there as well. So open field here for you. Tell us a little bit about how you got started and how you got to where you are now.
I'm like most insurance agents. I fell into it. I was in a class in high school where I was sent to an insurance agency for an hour a day, 5 days a week for some semester or whatever. And when I got out of high school and was looking for a job, people immediately clamped onto that. And I started out at Prudential as a death claims clerk, and basically went into claims, and then I got into the property and casualty end of the business. From being in the claims office, somebody spotted me and said, you'd be better off in an insurance agency itself. And I got pulled into an insurance agency. And
what's the difference?
Well, the claims office I was working at was for an insurance company, and I was basically cutting checks for towing claims and things of that nature. But one of the insurance agents that we were doing business with said to me, I'd like you in my agency instead. I'd like you working with the clients directly, selling insurance or handling claims at our office. And that took me into a little bit different world that I've been in since, in the independent agent system. And I liked it. I always
Do you
did
have a
like
sense? Forgive me, I'm going to probably cut you off a
it.
bunch of times just to kind of explore different
Sure.
pathways here. Do you have a sense for why they were excited to pull you into a more front-facing role? Did they share anything with you at the time?
Just the fact, I suppose, that I was good with clients. I had a good rapport with the clients. I had proper grammar. I had good voice inflection, that kind of thing, which was what they were looking for at banks and insurance companies. So that's how I ended up in that end of the system.
Did you
And it's
know you
good.
had those skills?
I don't know that I was aware that I was that outstanding in that kind of a way, but they felt I was. And it led me into a whole different world because there was a lot of connection with clients when I got into the independent agent system. Um, that I wasn't used to and I had to learn. And the people that I wasn't used to, that, grown-ups. I mean, I'm 19, 20 years old and I'm dealing with grown-ups. And you just learn fast. And some people can do it and some people can't. And I was good at it. So I ended up advancing on, and I got to a point in my life where a gentleman said to me, "Look, we need you at our office and we can't really pay you much. You can be an independent contractor and sell. We can give you a CSR, a clerical staff salary for a year and a half." And I thought, well, you know what? I know more than these people do. And it really was a true situation where I did know more than they did. They had just started an agency from scratch. So I went in and I basically went in as a help clerical person and do sales at the same time. And when I got to the point where my sales were more than my clerical salary, then I just went full time into sales. And we were starting to hire staff at that point in time to do the work.
That's
And
kind of entrepreneurial in itself,
yeah, it was
a
kind of,
little bit. It's like I don't really want to do,
yeah,
and building out of roles
yeah,
is
it was.
extremely
It was an
entrepreneurial.
expansion. And
Yeah.
then I was there for quite a while and we sold the agency. We sold to a bank.
Hmm.
And that was a mistake, but you don't know those things when you do them. You have advisors that say, yeah, do it.
Why was it a
And
mistake?
well, we didn't know that the bank had some real bad investments in Michigan. And no one knew.
Housing.
No, actually, in Michigan, it was the tool and die industry and dealing with the dealerships.
Ah.
Strangely enough, that was in 2008 when things were real bad. And the bank went into a tailspin, and the bank sold us to a
Oh
national
God.
broker. And when you get sold to a national broker, the national brokers have a decision to make. Do they want the business or do they want 40 employees? And they wanted the business. So 40 employees basically
Oh.
went out on the street. And I have been lucky over the years. I knew everybody in this business in the area. And I knew where I wanted to land if I ever did. And in fact, the owner of this agency at the time had said to me over the years, if ever you want to come to work for us. And I said, I've got my own agency. Don't be silly. But finally, it got to that point, and I walked into his office after they let me go, and he looked at me. He said, "I knew you'd be here eventually." And he said, "Well, what do you want to do?" I said, "Well, I'll do sales." And he said, "Fine, take the office in the corner." And at the time, I had a non-disclosure contract, non-compete for 2 years. So basically, I started over again for the first 2 years before I could go back after some of my clients. And that's where I've been. So I was here, and about 2000, I'm going to say it was 2018 or 19, I was out doing cold calls, which I just love to do,
Yeah.
knocking on
How do you
doors.
do your cold calls? How do you do them?
I knock on doors. I walk up to a business and walk in and hand over my card and say, hi, it's me. And if you're looking for insurance, and they'll say, no, not really. Or, we have the conversation. You have the same conversation you usually have on a phone, but they're usually nicer. And one day I walked into a tool and die shop out in the boonies. And the man said to me, I'm going to have my wife call you. We have an issue. And I thought, oh boy, here we go. So she
Oh yeah,
called.
you had that negative feeling in your gut
Yeah,
about the tool and
yeah.
die company.
Something's really wrong. This is only a tool and die shop. Okay. I mean, this is not a big deal.
Yeah.
And the woman called me back and said, I have a claim and the insurance company won't tell me why they can't pay it. And I said, that doesn't make sense. They have to tell you why they can't pay it. She said, no, they can't tell me. And I said, okay, well, I went out to sit down with her. And in the long run, what happened was they had a cyber claim. At that time, I had never seen an actual cyber policy. Most insurance companies didn't write them. Most insurance agents and claims adjusters had never seen one. And what happened was when this lady presented the claim, the insurance company literally didn't know what to do with it. And they denied it correctly because they knew they weren't covering it. But what I
she was
found,
making the claim.
she was making the claim, and what they did was they gave her $10,000 out of another section of the policy just to cover the computers themselves. But what had happened, unfortunately,
That's a decent effort.
well, yeah, I mean, they tried something. They knew they couldn't give her what she really needed. She had an addicted daughter. The daughter went to one of the universities in the area, and somebody in the area knew her father was doing work for
Oh, Lord.
a Caterpillar. Okay, for Caterpillar. And the job for Caterpillar happened to be for the Department of Defense.
Oh,
So what they wanted, of course, was the schematics. And they took down the entire system because she sold them the password.
Oh, my
So,
God.
yeah, it was nasty. They ended up losing their business entirely in the long run. But in the meantime, it gave me my entrance into the cyber field because I had no idea what was going on. And I came back to the office and I said, who do I call? Who do I talk to? And nobody at the office knew anything about it. They said, well, call so-and-so. And I called and he said, okay, this is who I'm going to direct you to. Yeah, this is going to be a big thing. I said, okay, well, tell me what to do. So I got on the phone with some people and I started listening and figuring out that, yeah, this was going to be a big deal. We needed to sell it to our clients. It was just really starting to bubble up. It had been around since the 90s. I mean, cyber insurance is not new like people think it is.
When you said this was going to be a big deal and we needed to sell it to our clients, if you could just clarify your thinking. Was it that cyber was going to be a big deal and you guys had to prioritize it in the sales process in your business, or this was going to be a big deal for the tool and die company?
Well, no, this was going to be a big process for the insurance agencies to sell to the clients, number one. I was thinking from the insurance agency's point of view, but from the client's point of view, all clients, I could see where this could be a problem. Now, when I started selling cyber, there was only liability coverage. So it was a situation where we were talking about if someone got into your system and got a hold of people's IDs, they could use them to set up false credit. And that's what everybody was worried about. And they said to me, well, we're going to have lunch and learns, and you're going to teach the clients all about this. So we had this big luncheon set up 3 times and brought the clients in. I said, here's what you got to be wary of. You got to be wary of people's IDs being stolen and being ransomed. And I'm sitting in Youngstown, Ohio, and they're all saying the same thing to me. Who's going to ransom me? I'm not big enough. I don't need this coverage. And I'm thinking, you know what? Yeah, no, but I still see some value here. And just about that time, I think we were just in about a year in, one of the insurance companies came up with the crime section of the insurance policy. And I think it was somebody out of London, could have been Beasley, and said, look, here's the other situation that can happen. Somebody can get in through the computer and get your bank account and steal your money, or they can get information about your clients and their bank accounts and steal their money. Now we have a problem. And I immediately said, okay, everybody's got a bank account. So I went at it a whole different way then. And I've been selling it this different way for years now. And when I teach the cyber and I talk to the students, I tell them my way of doing it. I said, look, the chances of somebody being ransomed, especially when you're in an area like I'm in, and even in your area, okay, we are not in massively big cities. Most of our clients are under $100 million of sales. Most businesses under $100 million of sales are not going to be ransomed. People that are doing the ransoming want money. They want big money. They want millions on millions of dollars. So they know what they're targeting. But everybody is after somebody's bank account. And I can tell you every claim I've ever paid so far has been a crime claim. None of my clients have ever been ransomed. So I sell the cyber insurance based on crime, covering your butt in your bank first. Now it's going to do the whole job. It's going to cover ransomware. It's going to cover your liability. But the bank account is where most people get affected. So
you're doing a wonderful job too I don't know if you have formal sales training or if you have just a really an entrepreneurial personality of going and figuring shit out and working process until it works for you. But good sales theory talks all about identifying pain points and identifying specific solutions to logical pain points. And talking about ransom scenarios, to your point, which is where you started, doesn't speak to very many people's pain, because what we know about ransoms is homeboy in the movie with the I've got the special skills, like that's what we think about with ransoms. We don't think about ourselves, most people's selves, as having lives like that. So when you go and try to sell the ransom scenario, it's like, oh my God. But you're right. Everybody knows somebody that's got an addicted family member. Everybody knows somebody that, has had a family member take money out of a purse or a wallet. You know what I mean? Everybody knows like how easy it is. Everybody knows somebody who's gotten a message on Facebook from somebody's hacked account trying to sell them shoes, or trying to, you know what I mean? Like everybody's had those simple experiences. So when you break it down into ways that
if you break it down to the client to what it could really affect them, can they get ransomed? Sure, anybody can get ransomed, but it's not going to happen 99% of the time. 99% of the time, you're basically looking at protecting your assets, just like you do with any kind of insurance. And that's the way I've been able to sell it. And like I said, every claim I've had so far has been where they're either an invoice manipulation, or someone has gotten into the bank account and stolen the money that way. And when I talk to people on that basis and you start to talk to them and focus on that, they realize that that's a big issue. And yes, maybe to a big company, getting $10,000 or $15,000 stolen isn't a big deal. But I've had $66,000 that was stolen this year. I've had $39,000. I had $140,000 twice, $140,000 range. So that's a lot of money for a small company.
Absolutely, it is. So you've got to start in the cyber world. And you've got a really unique look into it from this experience with the tool and die company. And it allowed you to kind of get ahead of an industry a little bit that now over the past 2, 3, 4 years, really since COVID has ramped up as more and more businesses continue to go online and continue to do more of their sales online and begin to have team members online.
Mm-hmm.
Talk to me about transitioning into, and I know you do a little bit of everything, but talk to me about deciding to create your insurance educators company, and talk to me about moving into that small business ownership element of things in your current stage or in your recent stage.
Let's face it, everybody's got a gig job. And I always was a good teacher. I've always been a good teacher. I've taught over the years in different places and different classes. And the Society for the SCIC, the Risk and Insurance Education Group now, had asked me back in about 2014 would I start teaching some classes. And I said yes. And so I teach quite a few classes that are designed and we're continuing education classes. And then I also teach on the side on my own, because there are people who will say to me, design us a class for this or design us a class for that. And a couple of weeks ago, I designed a class for the National Institute of Steel Detailing and presented twice at the National Steel Conference down in Louisville, Kentucky, because people want to know different things that I know about. So that's how I kind of got that gig job on the side routine. And I enjoy the gig job. I'm going to be doing it all day tomorrow, or all day Thursday. I'm doing the gig job. And I do about, probably 10 hours a month of the teaching. And I enjoy that. And we get good response, and people need to have things they need to know, and I'm happy to give them the information.
What was the hardest part of, I guess it sounds like there wasn't a hard part. You just kind of, it made sense for you to take it on as a balance.
Yeah, it did. It made sense. I knew that I could learn the topics that they wanted me to teach. There was some of it that I wasn't real familiar with, but then once it got to the point where they were into the cyber, I said, okay, I got this. This part I can handle.
Right. What are some of the things that stand out to you as important functions of the teaching process that make you stand out?
I when I'm teaching insurance agents, okay, I have been in their shoes all my life. I've taught people from next that have just walked into the business that are getting licensed, all the way up to people that should have been teaching me. Okay. I've done every job in an insurance agency except accounting. I've done every single job that you can find in an insurance agency. So I can equate to what they're doing and how much time they're spending and how much effort it is and how frustrating it can be. And then you got to sit in front of somebody who's trying to teach you, and then you got to take a test. Okay. And yeah, that's frustrating and that's upsetting. And I've done it for years. So I guess I can identify with them. And then when I'm talking to people that aren't in the insurance business and I'm talking about the cyber or some other topic, you just have to identify with them. You have to understand that they have needs, and they want to understand what their problems are. And if you can get to that problem, the issues that they have, they'll listen, and they'll equate themselves to what you're trying to tell them.
I wanted to ask because so to me, so much of good and effective teaching is just good and effective training, coaching, or management in a lot of circumstances. Now, management, not as much, but a little bit. And I was curious as to what you were going to say, because so many people nowadays are struggling with effectively managing teams, getting what they want out of their teams. And I think a really important way to get what you want out of your team is to train them effectively and make expectations clear. And I was curious to see what you would say. And I mean, I think it just makes a ton of sense. Understand them. So have some empathy,
Yeah.
actually be fucking expert in what you're talking about. So
Yeah.
have done the roles.
Yeah.
Like if you're trying to lead people, if you're trying to lead a sales department, but you've never done sales, that's going to be
Yeah.
tough. If you're trying to lead a restaurant and you've never worked in a restaurant, it's going to be fucking tough. You
Yeah.
know, no knock on anybody without the skills. It's tough
Yeah.
to lead without the skills.
And if you don't understand who you're talking to, how are you going to help them? One of the big peeves that I have in any industry is the fact that people want to know what they're doing. They want to learn more. Let them learn. If somebody in our office says, I want to take such and such a course, take it. Not going to bother me that you know more than I know. That's only good for me in the long run. But so many people that I see are afraid that somebody's going to know more than they know. And my feeling is the more people I know that know more than I know, then I don't have to learn anything. Okay. I mean, I don't like computers, never have. I never learned Word. I never learned Excel. I didn't have to. My staff knew that. And as far as I'm concerned, I'll always hire that out. I don't want to learn it. I don't want to know it. I know exactly what I need to do. So that's like mowing the lawn. I don't want to know how to mow a lawn correctly. I'll hire somebody to do that. That's the way the world works. So if somebody wants to learn something and know more than me, good for them. Maybe I'll need to use them later. So I just think pushing education is the greatest thing. If you're an employer, push your people to learn more, even if it's not in something that you can possibly use at the time. Let them learn something.
Absolutely well said. And we're a species that thrives because of community. It's
Mhm.
not that we are the alpha species on Earth because we're so much stronger than bears, lions, and tigers. It's because we're smarter and able to work together.
Mhm.
So, and if you think about in history, you know, people were, cobblers, people were farmers, people were blacksmiths. They had specific roles that everybody kind of leaned on and used. So your point about like, so somebody knows something I don't know. So somebody on my team is stronger here than I am. That's good. You need to have aces to go
Yep.
to the places. You got to have people that are going to be able to do the different things well.
Yeah.
And everybody's got a strength and everybody's got a weakness. And
Yep. And
some
you
of
got to
us
learn
have
what
some
they
of them.
are.
Yeah, and just know yourself and know
Yeah.
your team. If you want to have, if you
Yep.
want to
Know
lead,
your
know
team.
what.
I know. We've got 20 people in this office. If I need something in the construction area and somebody asks me about a contract, I know who to go here to. Somebody wants to know about cyber, they come to me. If somebody wants to go to about pollution, we've got somebody here that's an expert on pollution. We've got a bonding expert. We've got people in different areas that know what they're doing. So if I have a question, I can go ask them. And they'll say, okay, call this one or call that one, or here's where you're going to find that answer. That's great. That's what you need. And there's no reason to be afraid of somebody not of teaching somebody so that they know more. There's always somebody that's going to know more than you do. That's a for sure thing. So accept that and use them. That's great.
Right. Well, that's very well said, and I think we're at a perfect tipping point into uh, how to make cyber insurance a win-win-win. And I think the way I'd like to kind of tee it up to you is you have been on all three sides of this proverbial triangle, in the brokerage world, in the small business world, and in the insurer world. Could you describe the three different roles and maybe what you have seen them think about cyber insurance and kind of their perspective on the whole deal? Because I think, like we just described, if you want to be able to effectively lead, manage, or train or teach, you've got to have understanding. Same is true if you want to have good business with people. You've got to kind of be able to understand what their freaking needs are. So let's break it open.
Well, first of all, and I tell people this, there is so much money in cyber right now. It is the way to become a billionaire at this point in time. I mean, if you put the word cyber in front of ice cream, you could sell ice cream, okay? Because cyber is it right now. Cyber and AI are the world as far as most people are concerned, especially insurance companies, okay? This is a big deal right now. So there's greed involved. There's a lot of money and there's a lot of greed. So you've got an insurance company who looks to make money. You've got a small business owner who's looking to protect himself. You've got an MSP, the security people, looking to also make money and protect the insureds who are buying the insurance. And for a while, there was a big problem. When cyber insurance started to become more visible and was being sold more, the MSPs, the managed security people, weren't too happy about it. You know, the initial feedback was, you don't need insurance. We can keep you protected and you don't need to have it. And that's not true. Yeah, and it's not true. Only because people are human beings.
Well,
Okay?
it's like,
and they make mistakes.
right.
And
Yeah,
if
exactly.
you tell me you've got me protected, but I opened the wrong email, you can't do a thing about it. Okay.
Well, and there's surface area for mistakes. It's like the IT service provider, or
Oh,
the security
absolutely.
provider can make a mistake, and because they've
Yeah.
been working for
There's
14
too
hours
many
and they're tired and hit the wrong button.
Yeah.
I
Yeah,
mean, my God.
absolutely. So you had to realize that they have to work together. There's got to be a way of working together. So now you've got a couple different markets out there that are trying to do ways to work together. The insurance companies, the pure cyber companies that are pretty much all technology companies, are saying, hey, we'll help you with your defenses so you don't have to pay as much for your security. And the security people are saying, wait a minute, we're going to start looking at your insurance on your behalf and take it to some insurance people and get their ideas on it. And then you've got another new company that's come into view that says to the MSPs, you don't need to get involved in the insurance. Just send us the policies and we'll analyze them for you. And then you can go back to your insurance and tell them what they need. So now you've got three different groups that are working. And then you've got the low insurance agents saying, just let me step in here, okay, and tell you what I think you need. So now
They're trying to get their little cookie.
absolutely, we all want to make money. Okay, everybody wants to make a buck. And it's just blooming that hot and that fast. And there's going to be a lot of consolidations. Already, the security people are starting to consolidate. Okay.
When you say consolidations, could you elaborate a little bit on what you mean?
Well, the Sentinel One merging with Fortright or something like that. Those big security, those big security companies merging together. That's going to keep happening. The MSP groups are starting to merge together. They're finding that works better that way. Then you've got the insurance brokerage firms. You've got the specialty brokerage firms in cyber that are starting to merge together. And then the cyber technology companies, such as Corvus, that started out all online, and Coalition, are getting bought by the old standard insurance companies like Travelers that don't understand technology and how you can write cyber. So they buy them, and that's their entry. So it's just a massive amount of money involved that everybody's after.
And then the small business owners are just trying to protect the money that
they've got.
Not pay too much.
They're getting confused, and you can't blame them. They've got to have security. So they got their security guy or their IT person saying, I think we've got you covered here. And the insurance agent is out there saying you're covered from that end, but please, I want you to understand that there are people that make mistakes and you need to cover more. And yes, it's a cost. Right now, I'm going to say the average minimum premium is about $1,500 a year for cyber coverage. That's not drastic for a
Doesn't
small
seem too crazy.
business.
No.
No, but if you're a small business, a small retailer or something, a woman's clothing shop, that's another $1,500 on top of the $3,000 you're already paying. And yeah, it just adds up. So it's tough. For the larger small businesses, it's not so bad. But yeah, it's just another cost that you're having to add in. And you have to look at it from the point of view of protecting yourself. And like I said, the only way that I have ever sold it to small businesses is because of the crime section. They're not going to get ransomed. And, you know, yes, God strike me dead. One of them will. But most of them will
Don't get
not.
struck dead on the call, please.
Yeah, we joked about the tool and die shop that brought me into the business. I had a tool and die shop lose 140,000. Two brothers, two old computers sitting in a dusty room. The two of them probably play games on them most of the time. One of them must have opened a bad email. And somehow somebody got into their system, read all of the information, knew all the owners' names, knew the bank accounts, knew all their accounts receivable,
Jeez.
knew who to go after, and made up a email using the word TOO1 instead of tool and tool.
Oh, golly.
Oh,
Yeah,
easy.
yeah.
And sent out an email saying, "Hey, John, it's Gary. We've had a hell of a time with such and such a bank. So we've just gone and refinanced everything and we're changing banks. And here's our new bank number. And when you send us the $141,000 you owe us,
Oh,
take it to
God.
the bank instead." And that's exactly what they did. They sent it to the new bank without even asking a question. So now I got a guy in Canton, Ohio that lost 141,000 to this scheme, and I got a guy in Salem, Ohio that isn't getting his $141,000. So
Right.
I've got two victims, and that's how some of those things work.
Probably a
And
lot of
they come back after you a second time. One of the
right
other
because they
accounts,
know.
yeah, they got
It's like
they
a
know
breaking and
him.
entering scenario. It's like
2 years.
yeah.
2 years. I got another account where only have five people that they deal with in Canada, and it's metals. And they got in there a few years ago, 2 years ago, and tried and got their hands on a little bit of money from one of the clients. And I got called by their MSP, and he said, "You need to write them some cyber insurance." And I did. And I got a call one Friday night about a month ago, and he said they came after us again. He said, luckily, the guy in Canada, one of the guys in Canada, called me and said, "We've gotten another one of these letters." So they called all their clients that night and warned them that this was going to happen. He said, "How did they get in again?" I said, "They got in the first time, and they're going to, if they got in once, they're going to figure out how to do it again." And they just waited patiently till they thought everything was going to be calmed down and nobody would be looking again.
It's like
And
a
they,
lead.
mm-hmm, yeah,
It's like, well, we know this. We know these guys are interested in bad cybersecurity,
yeah,
so we'll
yeah.
knock on that one again.
And we know the money's there and we know we can make some bucks. So let's go back to that one. And that's what they're going to do. So it's not anything that you're ever going to be able to totally stop. You can, and even in
Right.
training your employees, I can stand here and take all the training um, videos in the world and they'll catch me. I've been caught on those training videos before opening something I shouldn't have. So, and I'm an expert. And if I can get caught, anybody can.
Right. Right. Well, and attacks are always changing, and attack surfaces are always changing.
They
And,
are.
you
Yeah,
know.
they're getting smarter every day.
So I think the angle I want to take, and then I'll maybe ask a more broad question is, how can and how should small business owners engage with the other two parties so they can protect their interests, which is slightly different than the other two parties'
Yeah.
interests? Because it's
Yeah,
more of a
it's
preservation versus a
yeah.
gain, and the other two
The other
are
two
gain.
are for gain more. Yeah. The insurance agent and the MSP are working on a profit basis
Right.
where the insured is protecting their assets. A little bit different situation.
A little bit of an isosceles.
Yeah, it's a triangle, not a balanced triangle when you think about it.
But we just got to
Um,
get it to wins.
yeah,
It
you
has
just
to be all the way balanced,
yeah,
but
you
it's
got
got
to
to
get
be
it
win.
to where everybody's happy. So you basically, my point is, if you've got a security person that you're dealing with, and you should probably have him talk to your insurance agent, or your insurance agent talk to him and say,
Interesting.
look, here's what I'm coming up with. This is what I've got. I think they need to spend this $1,500 on this because of this reason. And I will tell you that most of the time the MSPs are going to say, yeah, there's only so much I can do. They still need to cover the butts.
Right. I,
And and they're honest with them, and many times they're going to help them fill out the applications, because if I say something to a client and I hand them an application that says multi-factor authentication, 90% of the people still don't understand what that is. So they turn to their MSP or their IT person to get that information. And they need to work together. It has to be done that way to make sure everything's as covered as it can be. Nothing will be totally covered.
right. You kind of blew my mind. You kind of hit me with a few things today that I've been like, God, that's such a good idea. It's so simple. One of them was uh, just cold walking into businesses. You said that before the call that you're like, I just go into the businesses and like I do cold calls. And I mean, the first sales experience I ever had was door to door sales. So like, of course it makes sense. But like that is just brilliant. And that stuck out to me. But the second thing here that was like, oh, that's so brilliant, but so simple, or brilliant and so simple, is if you're a small business owner and you're not sure if what the two sides of the triangle are telling you, just make them talk to each other.
Yeah,
That's so
absolutely.
genius. And it's like, of course, because if your insurance person, like all of a sudden doesn't want to have that conversation, then they may not have your best interests at heart. And
Yeah,
if your security guy doesn't want to come to the table to have that conversation, then maybe they don't have your best interests at heart.
yeah,
And you need to suss that out
yeah.
way more than you need to get this triangle right. So if you get this triangle right and suss that out at the same time, now we've got 4 freaking wins, Mercy. This is just
Yeah.
dubs across the board.
Yeah, and
Like
and
the
it's
Steelers
not
season
it's
this year.
not that hard, except that it's time consuming. Let's face it. It's taking 3 people and saying, or at least the one person
Coordinating.
is going to have to take the other 2 and say, look, talk to each other, tell me what you think I need. And I've done this with MSPs before, and they're more than happy to say, well, what do you think they're going to charge them? And they have this and they have that. Do they need to have this? Does the insurance company say that they have to do encryption? No, most of the insurance companies don't want them to have to do encryption. And that's the kind of stuff. You got to talk this stuff back and forth and get it fixed. It's not that hard.
It's
Okay.
also not black and white, it sounds like.
No, it's not black and white, because different businesses need different kind of security coverage. And I don't know all of that. I'm the insurance agent. The insurance agent's usually the most left out of the whole thing. All I'm doing is handing them applications in reality and saying, fill these out. And then I'm going back to the insurance company and getting the premium for you. Now, I know enough to know when something's way out of range, and I can get a whole line of premiums and I can give you all the coverages, but I'm not a security person. Okay. I don't know which security matches what best. There are people out there that are in cyber that really do know that, and they're specialists and they're wonderful at it. And I love some of these people. I've never gotten into it that deeply. But it's available. You can do it. It's not hard. But the one thing I will tell you is, unfortunately, people in small businesses believe that they've got cyber coverage already under their policies. And no matter how many times you tell them they don't, they want to believe that it's there. And they need to stop thinking that way and start asking, where is my cyber coverage? Show me where it's at. Because if if the agent can't show you where it's at, you don't have it. Pretty simple.
Some good points. Some really good points of agency there for the small business owner. Can we take a perspective from the managed service provider? And let's say because we do have a good number of those that tune in and work specifically with a good number of those. So how do you make sure that you're delivering to the customer and having a genuinely balanced approach to the insurance needs? Because there are many IT service providers are taking on this cyber thing for the first time, or for a newer time, being break fix and having these questions get asked or whatever else.
Well, and the biggest problem is, I'm going to say 90% of the insurance agents that are selling cyber have no idea what they're selling, or don't even sell it. That's another problem. And here's our education problem. Not every insurance agency wants to have somebody know cyber. They don't see enough premium in it. It's not a big premium generator. It's not a big commission generator. So if I'm an MSP and I've got a client and they need cyber insurance, you've got to have a cyber expert, somebody who's an expert in the background in an insurance agency that you can go to, that's a cyber insurance specialist. And this is where some of the adjustments are coming in, and some of the groups are starting to gather together, where they're saying, okay, we're an insurance specialist and you're a security specialist. Let's work together. Yeah. You find a client that needs insurance, you call me. And that's the way to do it. But you got to find that insurance agency specialist. And I'm not going to say there aren't that many of us out there, but there still really aren't. I'll bet you only about 1 in 100 insurance agents even sell cyber insurance.
There's some legwork there, Some legwork is what you need to find the right relationship, the right person, the right knowledge.
You might need to have 3. One that says, I do nothing but big guys, and one who says, I just like the little people. You can't tell.
Yeah, you just need to figure it out. So take that MSP approach now. That's a great, wonderful point. I'm grateful that you made it. Talk a little bit about MSPs looking out to balancing the relationship between the insurance needs or the insurance agency needs, and then really delivering that to a customer. Have you seen partners that you've worked with, or other organizations do it well or not so well? Do you have some tips that you'd give for them?
You know what? I think the MSPs, and this is my opinion, need to worry about the security first. Okay. I think if they do their security job as best they can, optimizing the insured's money that they want to spend on security. Okay. They will be able to get decent insurance. I don't think it should be a fight between one or the other. There's always the ability to work with the insurance companies. I've had MSPs literally sit on the phone with the insurance companies and say, look, you're asking for this, this, and this, and I'm giving them this and this. Won't that work? Sometimes you have to do that. It's all negotiations. And what I see, I see MFA. When I first mentioned MFA to me, I thought you just threw a switch, and it automatically happened. Well, there's lots of different ways of getting MFA.
At first, I thought you were calling me some kind of curse word.
You know what MFA is. But when I first hear some things, and I'm saying, well, how do they do that? Everybody doesn't have to do it the same way. And it depends on how your system is set up. So you can't unfortunately, the insurance companies give you yes or no answers most of the time. And sometimes that doesn't work. And so an MSP is going to have to say, okay, I'm going to have to write this out on a white sheet of paper and give it to the insured to attach to the application. Sounds kind of dumb, but that's sometimes the only way it really works.
Well, and that's cutting through the noise of the
Yeah,
application and
sure
the
is.
noise of the process. Like, let's like go to the scratch piece of paper where we did our work, because that's what that's what really matters. Even to the underwriter.
Yes,
You
to the
know,
underwriter, yeah. Usually the underwriters at these insurance companies, especially the tech companies, when you're talking a Coalition, an App Bay, um, somebody like that was started in tech, they are computer people, so they have a grasp of things. You go to a company like even Travelers. Until the last 2 years, Travelers was just not as good as they should have been. And Chubb. Well, now that they've gotten their hands on a couple of their own little tech companies, they're much better now. They understand things much better. So,
to your
yeah,
earlier point.
it's still in a growing world. It's going to keep adjusting, and like I said, the more money that's into it, the more it's going to keep adjusting.
Insurance and adjustments.
Mhm.
A tale as old as peanut butter and jelly.
Yes, yes, sir. You're right.
All right, last question for you, and then we'll kind of flow our way out of here. And it's this one. I have heard of cyber insurance warranties, and I've even had an organization on to kind of discuss what that is. Can you talk a little bit about your perspective on it, and how you inform small businesses that you work with as it relates to that type of thing, and whether or not it's valid or...
Well, a cyber warranty, from what I understand from the companies that are offering it, are saying we, as the MSP, have a stack that we're using of our companies, and we're going to use them for your security, and we are warranting that if something happens, that they get through our security system with this specific product, that we will pay you, and it's normally a flat amount, so that you can defend yourself however you have to go forward, and bring in whoever you need. And it is a warranty, it's not insurance. Is it good to have? Can't hurt. Okay, can't hurt at all. It's immediate cash from what I hear. The issue is, I've got cash, what do I do with it? Whereas the insurance company is saying, okay, here's your insurance policy. When something happens, you call us. We've got all these people lined up already. We've got
They know
this.
what to do with
Yeah.
it. Yeah, they know all about the do with it.
Yeah, they know how to handle this. We've got this forensics guy, we've got this breach response team, we've got this person, we've got that person, and they're going to immediately move in and handle this. Are you going to have cash in your hand? No. Okay, we'll fix the situation. You may have cash down the road for business interruption coverage, but you're not going to have cash immediately. There's good sides to both. The warranty situation is guaranteeing a product, just like car warranties. They're guaranteeing the product won't break. Okay.
So you go get a hot site or a warm site, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Keep business operations,
Yep. Yeah, you got that there, and we'll give you cash. But now that you've got the cash, what are you going to do with it? Okay, so the insurance companies are saying we're going to take care of everything. You're not going to get cash. So it's a little of both ways. Is it going to hurt to have both? No, it's not going to hurt. I mean, but what the cost is, I don't know. I don't know.
And it could be wasted if you don't have your own effective plan for what to do in the event, because if you're like, well, I'll just get a warranty, and then you have an incident, and then you're like sitting on the cash, but burning, business that
in
you
the meantime, your
currently
business is
planned.
down. Yeah.
Right.
So yeah, it's an option.
Yeah, it's a part of the puzzle.
Yeah, it's a part of the puzzle. It's an option. And it's here again, it's money that can be generated out of cyber. And those things are going to keep coming.
I believe it. Well, Mercy, this was fantastic. I'm grateful that you came on and did a little bit of educating with us. If you want to go ahead and either share a final thought or share some information about how people could get a hold of you or whatever else, and then we'll
Well,
go ahead and do
you can
Tuesday.
reach me on LinkedIn, Mercy Komar, Komar. You can direct message me on LinkedIn. You can catch me here at the office at L. Calvin Jones, where I hold Komar Insurance Educators. The number here is 330-533-1195, and you can ask for me. And pretty much that's the best two ways to get a hold of me. But LinkedIn is really good. I'm on there quite a lot, and you can catch me there.
Fantastic.
And if I don't know what you need to know, I'll refer you to somebody who does.
And you're a lot of fun,
Yep.
which cannot be understated. Cool. Mercy, thank you again. Thanks to those who joined us. And if you haven't yet checked out the events page on triunitystrategies.com, check that out. It's a bunch of wonderful either workshops or conversations like this or other places to get career and business strategy information. So check that stuff out and check us out next week for a sales conversation with Paul Evans, who does an internship helping teach entrepreneurial skills. And he's been teaching young people the sales process for a very, very long time. So I know there's a lot of people in the IT service provider space that should tune into that one and would enjoy it. Have a good one, everybody. Happy Tuesday. Thanks again, Mercy. And have a good week. Bye, everybody.